Okay, what does a clogged cylinder head, ignition coil, a spark plug wire, and a oil sensor switch all have in common? They're all the reason why you're standing in the middle of your property right now, swearing and yelling and kicking and screaming because your machine keeps stalling on you or it won't start. We're going to cover some of the reasons right here. On your smaller engines, these are air-cooled engines, which means like your typical truck or car that has a whole cooling system with antifreeze going through it, these are air-cooled. Now, what that means is the air cools them. Now, when you're driving down the street in your truck or car, if you ever experience a vehicle overheating, the truck will stall or a car will stall. Same thing, same principle with these. Now, how do we prevent these from doing that? Well, when you work as a fleet mechanic, such as I do, and these things see a lot of daily use, there's a lot more maintenance required because these are running all day. A homeowner might only need to do this once a year. But over here on the bench, I have one that's actually apart. Your head here, all these fins, what happens is, and they're pretty deep, you can see in there, it goes pretty deep, so this can hold a significant amount of dirt that you may not even see just by looking at it. But it gets down in there and it forms a layer, and it'll pack in there nice and tight, and the air can't get in there to cool the cylinder head. Now, this one here was in the shop because they said it was running for about 10 minutes and then shutting off. Well, if you look down here, all of this, which you couldn't even see just looking at, was in the fins. Okay, so this mower was not breathing properly, and therefore when it got to a certain temperature, it would shut down. One way to solve that problem is to get a really high-powered air gun, such as this. Hold your ears. Get something like this, or even a shop vac. You can pressure wash it, and then you want to blow it off with this when you're done, but be careful with the pressure wire. There is some small wires on your machine, such as your oil pressure switch wires and things like that, that you can damage. I don't recommend a garden hose. Only reason because if you ever took a garden hose, it doesn't have a lot of pressure, and you put it on dirt, it becomes mud, and then when it dries, it gets really hard and rock solid. The garden hose doesn't have that pressure to literally get in there and clean off. Because if you were cutting when it was wet out and you got mud in there, it's basically going to get hard as a rock, and it's going to stay in there, and the garden hose isn't going to blow that stuff out of there. So you might think, oh, I rinsed it off with the garden hose, but a lot of times it makes it worse. It packs the dirt in there into mud and just forms like this shell, and you'll never see it because it's deep down in there in the fin. So I would recommend a pressure washer. If you blew out your valves, such as this one, this is why it's all apart. It's probably because this had gotten too hot and overheated, or if you blew your head gasket. Now, when you take heat and put it on something like a torch or something, if you're removing a bolt, well, heat actually expands. So when you put heat on something, the atoms and the molecules, they have to move faster, and moving faster, which means take up more space. Taking up more space means it's going to expand. And when your head expands, that's when you're blowing head gaskets and you're blowing valves. So hopefully you're not at that point. But what you want to do, even if you can't see in here, is maybe every couple of days, not every time after you use it, but every couple of times, unless you're in a commercial fleet and you're using it heavy, is you want to, take your backpack blower or whatever, blow in here really fast. I like to take the air cleaner assembly and stuff off because you can actually get in there more, because you're kind of restricted to what you can get to with a lot of these items on. But if you want to save your machine, you're going to go through that process, and you're going to make sure that you get in there thoroughly. This happens a lot on some bigger machines too that are liquid cooled. When I used to work over at the golf course and we were running those big 4500D Toros, the main reason of those overheating is the radiators on the back there, and it just packs with grass. So we constantly had to blow them out and rinse them out and get all the grass out of there. But that is the number one reason why your mower is probably shutting down. If it's starting up and it's running fine, chances are if it's shutting down after 10 minutes or so, it's just getting hot, right? So if you have a car that has a water pump problem, when you first start it, it's not going to overheat instantly. It is going to run for a little bit, and then the temperature is going to go up, and then the car is just going to stall. And the second reason could be your ignition coil. When your mower gets hot, it shuts down and you're getting an irregular spark. And to check to see if it is your ignition coil, what you want to do is get yourself a spark plug tester, such as this one that's got a little window on it where you would actually see the spark. And you can get this at either Napa Auto Parts or your local lawnmower shop, Advanced Auto, any of those. And what you want to do is pull your spark plug wire off. This end here will go onto the spark plug itself. And then you'll take your other end and you'll put the boot on this end here. And then you're going to start the mower when it's cold and just watch through this window and watch the spark. Take it off if you have a good spark there. Put the plug back on. Go run the mower and get it to the point where it overheats again or stalls again, I'm sorry. And then put this back on and try starting it and look at your spark again then, and see if there's any difference in your spark. Now, some small engines will have a whole metal sleeve over top of this to prevent this wire from actually, melting itself. This one here is all taped up. You can see this doesn't have the metal casing on it. Now, this one, what you want to check, this was actually melted, and it was against the muffler, and there was an arc going from the wire to the muffler. So another thing you can check too is walk around and look at your spark plug wire, pull it off, and make sure that your wire itself is okay. That actually goes hand in hand with the ignition coil, but check your spark plug wire, because there was some that wouldn't start, and I came over and pushed the wire away from the muffler and it would fire right up just because it was arcing right there. Another reason, now this one might be where you're pulling and it's not starting at all, but sometimes it can stall in mid-cut as well for this reason, is your oil sensor on the side. Most of these machines, as far as I know, would be a yellow wire. Come over to the side and you have your oil sensor going in here, which basically tells the machine, hey, I'm out of oil, I'm going to shut down, or I'm not going to start. Just unplug that and go ahead and pull and see if that gets you running again. I've run into that problem a lot, where guys will tell me they're pulling and it just won't start. Just unplug that yellow wire and see if that fires right up. If it is, it's usually your sensor, which is fairly easy to fix. The problem with that is your machine is not going to alert you anymore when you are low on oil, and that will just run until the machine blows up. But also, check the oil, because if the oil's low, the sensor's not bad. It's just telling you, hey, the oil's low, right? So hopefully these tips helped you out, and if it did, please hit subscribe below. Give me a like, guys. I'll see you next time.